Hemshech of Basel Legani about the Hemshech of the speaking about the Tzimtzum in Oistes Vav of the Hemshech, and we're speaking about how there is the Lamaila the Ketz, that the Tzimtzum causes the constriction, the Tzimtzum addition causes that the oil is completely concealed, and that light that's completely concealed is like we brought from Baal Shem Tov and Mezritch Magid. It's something that goes through different levushim, and that's the chiddush, that it can even be here and be concealed at the same time. So now the Rebbe is going to take another part of the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe quote, take a quote out of it and start explaining it. Line 22, 8th page of the Maimer of the printout of PDF, Ois Dalet. Mamshuban Maimer, the Maimer continues, but Tzimtzum Hurak Legam. This Tzimtzum that the Eibishter made, that caused and brings about the Lamaila den Ketz of the oil, how high and concealed the oil is only in regards to us. That from our perspective, it's a concealment. But in comparison to the Eibishter, the Tzimtzum doesn't conceal whatsoever. It shines after a Tzimtzum equal and the same like it would shine prior to the Tzimtzum. Like the statement that we have in Davening, you are the same prior to the world being created, and you are the same after the world was created. Bashvah, Gemura, completely equal. Ve'ena Tzimtzum master klal, and the Tzimtzum doesn't conceal whatsoever. It makes no difference. The Eibishter, the Tzimtzum, the world, and the Tzimtzum don't affect it. That's the quote from the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer. The Rebbe is going to elaborate upon it, last paragraph on the page, line 29. The idea behind this, the movement, seemingly it's not understood how the idea of the Tzimtzum, that following the Tzimtzum comes about the creation of the world. Still we reach a level that's below to no end. Seemingly a very big change between what was there prior to the creation of the world and after the creation of the world. So how do we say it's completely the same? Hashem is unchanged. Seemingly there was a big change involved. So he says in the last line, but the idea behind this is like the Mittler Rebbe explains in his Shar HaYichud, in chapter 9, top of the next page. Seemingly it's not understood what's written. He has the same question. How do we say that I am unchanged? It's going on the Malchus of the Ein Sof. Your kingship is the kingship of all the worlds. Your kingship, the way it is prior to the Tzimtzum, is the kingship of all the worlds, until the lowest world. If Hashem interacts, his kingship is down here below as well. If there's a change even in the sphere of Malchus of Asiyah, it's not disconnected from Hashem's kingship. So it affects also your kingship, the level of the highest levels of kingship, the levels even before the Tzimtzum, Malchus Tzimtzum. That's the meaning, Malchus Lamim. Every Malchus of every world, whether it's the Malchus of Atzilus or Asiyah, you have Malchus you have the Malchus Shalifnei Tzimtzum. So whatever happens and occurs in the lowest worlds, which impact and reflect onto Malchus, also impacts and should affect and change in Malchus of the Ein Sof. That's the question of the Mittler Rebbe. So he continues in line 7, the Mavayir, and the Mittler Rebbe explains, the answer for all of this is the idea of Tzimtzum as it's known. If the Hashpah from above would come in the way of Ilah Va'ol, of cause and effect, it would apply the idea of change and that he becomes excited or affected by it, involved in it. But since the Hamshacha that comes from Malchuscha, from the level of the Malchus Lifnei Tzimtzum, is only in a way of a light, it's only a ray of Hashem, and like the Mittler Rebbe is very exact in using the terms, it's known the difference between light and shefa, and a flow. That the flow means the actual thing comes down. Light is just an emanation. The ma'or is not affected by the light. Like it's also explained in the Maimer title to understand the idea of the Ein Sof. That it is higher to no end and below to no end. That in that Maimer that has that title, he says the intention in the exact language of light is to negate. By using the term oir, light, we are negating the idea of shefa. Shefa means that there's a change in the mashpia. When there's oir shining, it makes no difference to the ma'or. It's the light that comes out of it. Whether there's a cloud blocking or there's no cloud blocking, whether a house covers over and doesn't let any light in or not, makes no difference. The ma'or is the same. A mashpia, when he gives hashpah, like for example, a teacher teaching a student, over there's a difference. The teacher invests himself in it, and there's differences before he teaches, during he teaches, after he teaches. Over there's shinuyim. That's why we use the term oir Ein Sof. And another thing is, in addition to the fact that it's an oir, and because it's an oir, it doesn't have an effect on the ma'or, doesn't have an effect on the Eibishter. So he says another point in line 16, V'gam hu ha'idei tzimtzum, also this light that comes down into the world is coming through the tzimtzum. And not just any tzimtzum. So he says in the brackets, befrat tzimtzum addition, especially when we're talking about the first tzimtzum which it comes through. Shuba'ofen shall siluk v'diluk. The first tzimtzum, as we know, is different than all the other tzimtzumim. All the other tzimtzumim is only decreasing the light that was there before. It's not about just a complete stop to the previous light, whereas Tzimtzum Arishon, the first Tzimtzum, is different because it's completely taking away the first light. And anything that comes afterwards is like jumping over that type of gap and chasm that was there from the removal of the first light. That light left completely. It became a completely empty place. And after you had that complete empty space, comes down a very narrow and thin and short line. This in addition to the fact that the tzimtzum was only in the light and in the ray. So there's two components to make it further away. It's tzimtzum, and the tzimtzum is in the oir, meaning this is like totally separated from Hashem himself. And because of that, he says in line 21, that's why in the very essence of Elikus, there is no change whatsoever. Even more so, that also in the idea of the light, no change was made whatsoever. Up till now, we explained that because it's light and because it's tzimtzum, in atzmus it doesn't touch, because light doesn't affect the atzmus, and the tzimtzum makes it an even further disconnect. But perhaps you're going to say that's all concerning Atmos. What about the Oid itself? What about the actual light itself? Was there a change over there also? So he says even in the Oid didn't become a change. V'hainu, this means she'afal pisha ba'oid hoya inyat tzimtzum. Though there was a tzimtzum in the light, v'oid is in addition to this shegam ha'oid shenim shalachar tzimtzum u'kav kotzer v'dak. Even the light that came after the tzimtzum is a short, narrow, and thin line. The very fact that now you have a line that's short and narrow and thin, that itself is an idea of a tzimtzum, instead of it being broad and filling up all space. This in addition to the fact that initially when it came down through a tzimtzum. So there's a few things over here. There is, it came via tzimtzum, and what came through a tzimtzum was only a kav kotzer v'dak, a short and narrow and thin line. Still in all, in the loishanisi ugamba, or the idea that so one might say that there is a change in the light. So we're saying that no, even in the light, we also apply the term ani Hashem loishanisi, that the light is also unchanged. So it goes on to explain, top of page Yudalad, Shabir at Samach Tzedek, the mitzvah Hamonas Holocaust, that in the mitzvah of Hamonas Holocaust and the different mitzvahs in Dark Tesacham, she'inyan zeh ech she'ein shinu gam ba'orin is by Rabbi Roitzes Chai. That this idea, how there's no change also in the oir as well, is explained in the explanation of the Oitzes Chai. So he's going to give an example for this. Line 4, 10th page of the Maimon. Yuvan al piadug mishuvalza, this will be understood based on the example that's brought concerning this. The nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu haisam b'chinas atzilus. The neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu was from the world level of atzilus. V'hainu shoyamer by atzilus b'chinas gil lamata, that atzilus shown in a way of being revealed down here below. Harishanimtza gam lamata b'chinas atzilus is found down here below in a level of atzilus. From the perspective of the light of Atzilus itself, there is no obstacle whatsoever. What does that mean? If Moshe Rabbeinu would have been alive, would have been here present in this world with us, the light of Atzilus would have been revealed to him. So that means that via Moshe Rabbeinu, we would have had the revelation of the Oir of Atzilus. In this generation, there's no revelation of the light of Atzilus down here below. It must be that in existence, there's the light of Atzilus down here below also. It doesn't become revealed in this generation. An example of this, and this is going to fit in very well also with the concept of the example of Nevuah that he's going to bring in a moment. That I believe that Rebbe used this example for not necessarily this particular topic, but the same idea. When we say that a person uses, let's say, a radio to tune in to a signal, radio might be old-fashioned. Let's use a cell phone. The cell phone is tuning in and picking up certain signals. So that doesn't mean that the cell phone is creating this signal, but rather the signals are all around us. The radio waves are all around us. The mobile signals, whatever, are all around us. And when we have our radio tuned to a certain frequency, when we have our cell phone hooked up and able to receive from a certain frequency, so then it taps into it and it's able to receive information, to communicate, etc., etc. But it's not that if I don't have a cell phone, that means that the cell phone signals are not surrounding me, or if I don't have a radio, that the radio waves are not around me. They're all here, but I need to have a receptacle for it. The same thing, Atzilus is here. And Moshe Rabbeinu was a receptacle for it to be able to be revealed in Atzilus. The Atzilus should be able to be revealed here. But it's not that Atzilus is any less here because Moshe Rabbeinu is not here. In a similar vein, we're going to talk about Nevuah and the Gilui, the Beis HaMikdash. It's the same principle, the same concept. It's all here, except we don't have the instruments, we don't have the vessels, the channels to be able to receive it. Let's see it inside, line 14. In a similar vein concerning prophecy. Though from the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Nevuah, prophecy ceased. Mikol Makim, still in all, Yesh Metzias Nevuah Gam Bo'el Mazeh. There is the existence of Nevuah also in this world. The only obstacle is from the perspective of the receivers, that we do not have the appropriate type of technology, if you will, spiritual technology, to be able to receive these messages of Nevuah. But from the perspective of the Nevuah itself, the light and the Hashpah, those Nevuah waves, those Nevuah radio waves, those Nevuah mobile signals are here, are all around us. That in existence, that light and flow of Nevuah is to be found now as well, today as well. It's just not visible and revealed only according to the capability of the receivers, according to the channels, according to our reception and our technology to be able to receive the Nevuah. So what does that teach us? V'hainu sha'ashinui einoi ba'oir ki im bekach she'ein mi sheyuchol lakabel ha'oir. The change is not in the light. It's not that the light is anywhere missing or anywhere less, but it's the change is we don't have a person like Moshe Rabbeinu that's able to receive the light, that's able to receive Atzilus. We don't have personages or Beis HaMikdash that should allow us to receive Nevuah. Then he goes on another example. The end of line 21, another example of this, like it's brought down the mitzvah of Hamanas Holokus in Dar Pesachim, Hamashal Ma'arav, a metaphor of a teacher, Shemashpel Atzmi Lis Chakim Imtinik Kotl Lefi Askalasai, that lowers himself to be clever with a young child according to the capability of the particular intellectual capabilities of that child. So now he's quoting the Tzemach Tzedek, like he explains in the Maimer in the metaphor of a Rav that gives over ideas and intellect to his student. The desire of the Rav is that his saplings, his plantings should be like him. In other words, when the Rav is communicating the idea to his student, the goal is that the student should be able to appreciate this topic and understand it like the Rav understands it. So that the receiver should be able to contain and receive within him the hashpah from the Rav. So the Rav has to remove his entire intellectual awareness. Since the mind of the Rav is so much higher, incomparably so, than the understanding and the seichel of the student, he comes up with a seichel that's according to the level of the receiver. And even when he comes up with a seichel that's according to the level of the receiver, he makes in that seichel many constrictions and many concealments, which should be able to be received by the student. Therefore, all the constrictions are in comparison and regards to the receiver, to the student. But for the Rav himself, it's not a concealment, it's not a constriction. He knows exactly the full understanding of the idea, even though he put his idea on the side. And right now, the Rebbe is going to explain that. Up till now is the quote of the Tzemach Tzedek. What does it mean then that he put his mind on the side, he put his ideas on the side, and so on? I know this means the removal of the intellect of the Rav is not in such a manner that the Rav's mind is gone. It doesn't exist. Or the Rav's idea is gone. No. Rather, the Rav's mind, the Rav's idea, has no connection with the student that's going to receive. The fact that the Rav is a very great intellect, it doesn't have any impact on the connection between the student that's receiving with the Rav. Therefore, when the Rav needs to give over and to reveal an idea to the student, so then the mind of the Rav is not in a revealed way. Even the limited intellect that has some type of association in comparison to the mind of the student, if it's along and corresponding with the Rav's own mind. In other words, he can't have them both in his mind at once when he is trying to find the way to bring this idea to the world of the Talmud. Rather, he needs to completely divorce the two and set aside his understanding and take and pick out of his mind and focus consciously only on the idea the way the student would look at it, or the student's world. An example of this is if you have a big Goyen, a big Talmud Chacham that's asked to fill in and be a substitute in a class of fifth graders that are starting to learn Gemara. When this big Goyen learns a piece of Gemara, he sees in it the Rishonim, the Achronim, and the Skalocha, and everything that's derived from it. He needs to put that all out of his mind. And he needs to look at the Gemara now with a fresh eye, as if he's a fifth grader, and how a fifth grader would relate to this topic in the Gemara. That's the same idea over here that he's saying. So the conclusion of all this is, line 13, calls it moving from all this is understood. Even from the perspective of the light, there's no change. The only change is that there's no receiver, that there's a lack of a receiver that's comparable to be able to receive the light in its purest state, let's say the mind of the Rav, the way it is, just the mind of the Rav. Or, there's no one at present that has the capabilities to be able to receive Atzilus, the light of Atzilus, the light of Nevuah, that should be revealed. Like, for example, Moshe in his time was able to receive the world of Atzilus, and the Nevi'im in their times were able to receive Nevuah. So the lack is not in the light, the lack is in the receiver. So therefore, there's no change in the actual light. Anya Vaylo Shanisi applies also comparison to the light.